Good morning. Welcome to the Mish Auto Quarterly Insights. My name is Glenn Stevens. I'm the Executive Director of Mish Auto. Thanks for joining us this morning. We do these quarterly. We're trying to give you a little bit of the most up-to-date information on what's going on in the industry and certainly issues with policy changes and things that are in development with regards to immigration policy are top of mind for all of us. We're very lucky to have one of our investors and one of our big supporters and someone who's been with us for a long time, Rami Fakori, and he is with Fakori Global Immigration. Rami, thank you. We've known each other for a long time. Appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you, Glenn. It's a pleasure to be here.
So before we get going, because what we're gonna do here today with the audience that's on, we're going to cover 4 issues with you today, which I'll get to in a minute. We're going to hopefully leave a little bit of time for Q&A, which you can drop a question into the chat. But what I'd like to do first, Rami, is have you introduce yourself and a little bit about your firm.
Oh, sure. Thank you, Glenn. Yes, thank you. I basically started Fakori Global Immigration close to 25 years ago. It's a firm that focuses on corporate immigration and highly skilled individuals. From there, we expanded to global immigration. So we have an office in Canada, in India, in Barcelona, and we help companies basically move their talent worldwide to about 100 different destinations. The U.S. is still by far the majority country with about 75%, 80% of our incoming work, Glenn. So we don't deal with family or anything else. So we're very focused on corporate and highly skilled individuals.
Thanks, Rami. And you and I talk frequently because you are my go-to and one of our go-tos for issues like this. And so thanks for taking some time today. We talked last week, and to the audience, what we decided to do was really to cover 4 issues. And you can see them up on the screen here. And so what I'm going to do with each one of those is step through those with Rami, have him explain from a high level what is going on with the new policy or some of the issues in these areas. And then we'll move to the next one and we'll step through those 4 rather quickly and hopefully give you some time to drop a couple questions in the chat, but we will finish right around 8:30. So Rami, let's kick things off. And obviously the one that's gotten the most news and probably had been in the headlines is H1-B. And please go ahead.
Yes. In essence, President Trump issued a proclamation that would significantly increase the government fee for employers to file what they refer to as a professional or specialty worker. These are individuals with 4-year college degrees in some form of a specialization, and that needs to somehow logically relate to the work that they're going to do. So the company itself must also have a position that requires a 4-year degree. This has been a very big pipeline, if you will, for many employers throughout the country, as well as in the automotive industry, because it brings primarily U.S. educated engineers or IT workers into more or less entry-level positions within various companies. And these individuals tend to, of course, contribute quite a bit. At the same time, these companies help train them, they obtain experience, and they move up the ranking. And it's very important to our population of workers because there aren't as many American workers that are pursuing a lot of the STEM-based work that we need for whatever reason. So it is a generational thing that cannot be fixed, I feel, within a very quick year or two. We need a long-term plan to encourage more Americans to go into STEM-based fields and to stay in them, because many of them will end up in Wall Street and elsewhere. So again, the 100K is very prohibitive. It's going to enable large companies like NVIDIA and Amazon and Google perhaps to continue to pursue the H1B visa route. However, it's going to really hurt many mid-sized and small companies. For that matter, it may even hurt the large automakers because the margins aren't there, and $100,000 per case or per individual is quite significant. So it'll be very interesting to see how that will impact the request or demand for H-1Bs. My concern, which is good and bad, I guess, is we will have many, many individuals that will go into the AI field. There are companies right now paying $2, $3, $4 million for these AI engineers. And again, primarily that's Meta and the others. So I think they stand to significantly benefit considerably, but it's going to come at the expense of other essential companies and industries, such as here in the automotive industry. I'm very concerned with the projected shortage of engineers for the long term. So in essence, Glenn, it's going to be, if you have a lot of money and you can carry this cost, you are basically allowed to proceed. If not, you have to find another strategy to attract young talent and to keep them here, or experienced talent for that matter. The second notion of this proclamation, this was discussed before, but something related to it, is the wage requirements. There are four levels that a corporation can essentially apply for, or be labeled for. There's level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in essence, the administration, again, this is really what prohibits entry level or newer individuals getting in. The administration is going to push most of the applicants into levels 3 and 4, which are essentially high-level supervisor or super technical, someone very proficient, been doing something for a very long time, and or for executives and managers, which is really the highest level, which is the level 4. Obviously, salaries increase significantly. And again, that will leave very little left. There will be very little for startups, for small companies, for companies that are industries that just simply don't have the margins and cannot afford to pay the $100,000. So it's quite a significant blow, if you will, to really just longstanding American recruitment of talent practices for the last 2 decades.
Okay, a lot to unpack with this particular issue, and I'm going to come back to that when we have a couple questions here. But thank you for the overview on the H-1B changes right now. I did want to mention before we get going, Rami and I chatted, this is not legal advice. This is guidance today for you and information on the latest developments on these certain areas here. So let's move to the second one, Rami, and I was not aware until you and I chatted about the different layers of changes that are actually occurring in KUD. So I-9.
Yeah, and this is sort of somewhat out of the proclamation, but again, something that this administration has been talking about quite a bit. It's really it's essential. Any administration needs to hold up the law on the books, and you have to make sure that you have individuals that are properly vetted and screened and are authorized to work in the United States. You will see more audits of companies. It has not hit really as many white collar type companies, if you will, professional management companies, manufacturing, etc. But the Samsung Hyundai situation, I think was quite scary. It's not exactly an I-9 situation because it deals with how individuals can come in and do some after sales warranty work. I would just simply say that make sure that you have audited your entire I-9 profile for all your employees, and that's well in order because the penalties can be quite severe. And it seems like with this government or this administration, they are looking for additional revenue. So do not be an easy sitting duck there for them. Make sure that you go through and make sure there's incredible compliance when it comes to the I-9 worker, because we will start hearing about various companies being audited simultaneously if there's any rumor of someone not, being in the proper status, etc. That will probably spread, and you just don't want to be in there, and make sure you avoid the news. So that's the update with that one, Ken. I'm sorry, Glenn. The administration has not really changed laws per se. There are some changes to make it very strict, but they're going to really enforce what's on the books in essence. And everyone should have been doing it all along anyways.
Okay, got it. Got a question on that one I'll come back to also, but let's get to number 3. Perm EB1, EB2, and gold card.
Sure, yes. In the proclamation, the same announcement of the H-1B, President Trump basically announced the gold card, and the gold card, in essence, ambiguous at the moment. It's going to be a path towards residency in the United States, obtaining a green card, in other words. And it's basically going to be put into the EB1 and EB2 categories. Now, there's approximately 140,000 employment-based visas issued every year. It's about 28%, 28.5% per category. You have EB1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, actually. And what's striking about this here is it's basically $1 million donation that will ultimately go to the Department of Commerce that will help with various internships, training, education, and investment, I believe. In addition to that, if a company sponsors a key worker, it's going to have to pay $2 million. Now, what's frightening about this particular thing is really, other than the AI companies, who has this kind of money to pay for an individual that you want to keep here long term on a green card? And there are so many scenarios where someone may start off as a non-immigrant, becomes incredibly essential to the organization, and the organization needs that skill set, needs the experience and everything else that that individual has gained over the years and is now contributing back to the company. By failing to allow that individual to stay here long term on a green card, it causes obviously a many talent disruption and long-term planning, and dissuades some of the best and brightest in the world from even pursuing anything in the United States. But again, I do feel that certain companies will have the firepower, or the dry powder, if you will, to pay the million or $2 million per individual so they can obtain residency. Now, that's one thing, but what does that do to the other categories? In essence, it will take away essential numbers from the EB1A program BC, as well as from the EB2 perm/NIW category. So by basically making the contribution, they're working out the language so that you basically show that this is in the national interest of in the United States. This is extraordinary or exceptional. And so the individual doesn't have to really go through the talent test, if you will. It's really about how much money you have with certain other criteria and restrictions. So this is a big change in U.S. immigration, in the fact that we are now valuing basically an investment or money, which is great and essential, over what we deem as human capital. So we're moving to monetary capital over human capital, in essence, quite a bit by implementing these changes. And this gold card should hold constitutionally. I know there'll be lawsuits, but from what we see, I think the administration is going to be able to enact and enforce this.
Rami, let me do a quick follow-up here for one of the questions in the chat. What roles would qualify for the gold card?
What roles? Well, it seems to me that you would need a at least a 4-year college degree. Maybe for the EB5, you have to demonstrate, um, well, technically a master's degree, a 4-year degree with 5 years experience, or just a master's degree or higher. So these individuals will have to have some level of education. Again, the administration was very ambiguous. So just looking at the current categories, I would imagine that a master's degree or the equivalent thereof is essential to proceed. Now, on top of that, you'll have to do a background check. I don't know if there'll be what they call a source of funds, which means they make sure that the money is legitimate and clean, and the individual makes the donation. So again, they have not translated this into workable regulations or statute, if you will, Glenn. This is just on a very high level that they're trying to pursue this, and they are setting aside 80,000 of these visas, 80,000 from 140. That doesn't leave a lot left for the other, potential pathways towards green card, especially if you're highly talented or a researcher and professor. Um, the question is, how many people are in the world are willing to pay the $1 million, or how many companies are willing to pay $2 million for their employees? I did some quick research, and there's something like 36 million households approximately that have a million or more. And in some ways, and it's related to the next topic, by paying this, if you're an individual, let's just say, and you pay for this because you can self-sponsor, Glenn. So technically, you don't really need an employer, similar to what they refer to as a multinational manager or executive. I'm sorry, an individual of extraordinary ability. I apologize. That particular category and or the national interest waiver, someone can self-petition. So they can put in $1 million if they have the master's or equivalent, no criminal record, can prove the money. They get in, basically. So that's what's unique about this. So if you do have a high demand of 80,000 people that want to put $1 million in the United States, this will transfer back to the next topic that we're going to discuss, international students. Many families from abroad have 2 or 3 kids, perhaps, that they want to send to schools in the U.S. Obviously, they pay, I believe, triple the level of what other residents or citizens pay. So do you mind if I move on to number 4, Glenn? Is that
For
okay?
four, perfect
Yeah. For
segue.
number 4, yeah, international students. So there's a lot of things happening here. There have been significant cuts in research. The international students typically would obtain what they refer to as duration of status. Under this proclamation, that will be eliminated, and they basically will only allow a 2-year or 4-year visa. So that way they want to stop students that have been here for a while and kind of use the student status to stay here longer and eventually land a job and then move on to a career. I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as you don't take work away from U.S. workers. I think it's actually a very positive thing. But by doing this, the U.S. government is going to essentially dissuade international students from coming in because of the cost will be so prohibitive, and the limitation on the visa itself are somewhat risky. So a lot of individuals will rethink whether they want to pursue school in the United States. Now, that's very problematic because 71% of our grad students in STEM are foreign students, are international students. I don't know where you're going to find students to fill that ranking. I'm sure we still will. Lastly, the president wants to add a 15% maximum percentage of foreign students at U.S. universities in return for federal grants and subsidies that they get from the U.S. federal government. So in essence, there is a very chilling effect, if you will, for international students. And I'll tie that back into point 3. So if you make it that difficult for international students, if you have a wealthy couple with 2 kids overseas that will, in essence, save almost $1 million by becoming residents to the United States and avoid the instability and uncertainty of the student visa pathway, they'll make the $1 million investment because, I mean, over the course of 4 years, you're talking about each student paying an extra probably 400, let's say 400,000 to $600,000 a year per student, in addition to what the locals will pay for tuition. So if you have 2 kids, this $1 million donation doesn't seem so unrealistic. So I think that will be taken advantage of. There are many students in China and India and Nigeria, Russia, all over the world that are willing to probably pay this, their family or their parents are, in order to come in. Now they do say that the $1 million is per individual. I don't know if that's going to change or not, so that makes it much more prohibitive. So I'm just trying to understand and sort out the mindset. It's clearly more on a isolationist basis where we keep out foreign international talent, whether they studied in U.S. universities or not, or if they're just coming in from abroad. There are other pathways that we can discuss in another session, Glenn, but there's a lot here to unpack. There's a lot here to explain. So hopefully people are getting the message that we are entering an era of very difficult penetration to the U.S. market if you're a foreign international student or an international worker trying to enter the United States, especially
which
entry level.
which will impact the supply chain for talent, no question about it. So, a question, Rami, in the chat. Would the 2 or 4 year student visa be a total number of years for that person? or the degree program they are in?
I'm sure that they will pursue, again, they didn't make that clear. I'm sure if someone's here just to pursue an associate degree, they're going to tie it in. And they mentioned that they're going to tie it into the length of the program. So if it's 4 years, it'll be a 4-year program. But the problem is the uncertainty here is many people do not finish in 4 years. And then after that, they basically want to pursue some kind of training under the what they call the OPT, which may be eliminated, by the way, which allows them to work and not really work, I'm sorry, it allows them to be trained, but they work can be a component of it through a company for a full year without seeking any other status. They remain as F1 OPT, which is occupational practical training. By doing that, they stay here for a year, then they basically apply for an H1B through the lottery. And they may have a shot at it if they're STEM because they get an additional time period. So with STEM, you get approximately another 27 months. So it basically gives a very well-educated foreign international type student time to train and then ultimately obtain permanent employment with the company. I'm sorry, temporary employment, then eventually permanent employment.
Okay. I've got a few questions while we kind of tie up here over the next 5 minutes. If anyone else has another question, please drop it in the chat. But big picture, Rami, is the way that all of this new policy has been delivered was by proclamation. This is not law. This is
Correct.
not even executive order. This is by proclamation. Would any of this be, or is any of this being challenged in the courts at all?
Yes, absolutely. The H1B 100K provision is being challenged. There was already one lawsuit filed, and I believe two more on the way. And that probably may not hold from what, legal experts are saying around the country. Regardless, I know that the administration is going to make it much more difficult. So even if the 100K is struck down, I'm sure they'll figure out some kind of fee that may not be as high that they will be able to get away with. That's one. Number two is you're going to have many more what they refer to as fraud detection and national security inspection visits. This administration is also looking at giving these individuals who tend to be more or less white collar consultants, auditors, if you will, they're looking at giving them law enforcement power so they can arrest if they find something wrong or something misleading, etc. That's been proposed. I don't know if that will actually go through. But in short, Glenn, I think that we may see that this 100K proclamation will ultimately be struck down by early January. I happen to know the attorney that filed the first case, and he's really, really brilliant, and has an incredible track record in winning these issues in
So
court.
I see a question or two that are coming in, but I want to ask you one more big question. Big picture, if to our audience and to the Mish Auto community and the stakeholders who are working in the industry, what would be the one, two very important things from an HR perspective, from whether you have manufacturing, R&D, or development that a company should be doing right now? And you mentioned it earlier about auditing. What should companies really be a number one on the list right now?
Yeah, no, first and foremost, as I mentioned, the I-9 is really critical, which is required of any hire, U.S. citizen or otherwise, to make sure that it's properly completed, that there's proper documentation, and that you review them and have a mechanism in place to make sure that you review them every, few years, depending on the individual's situation. If, for instance, an H-1B obtains a 3-year approval, after that, they can apply for an additional 3 years. And you have to basically renew the I-9 for whenever their status changes. So it's very important, it's tedious, and it's a lot of work. In terms of H-1Bs, and for that matter, any other visa category, just make sure that all of your audit files are well documented and prepared. Have a point person, should there ever be a fraud detection and national security visit. It's very important that one person holds a lot of the knowledge because sometimes they'll approach a receptionist who's just really not up to speed on who's there, why are they there, and what their status is, and that could cause issues. So just make sure that you have a plan in place should Department of Labor or the Department of Homeland Security or USCIS visit your location and ask you for information.
Okay. Um, Boy, that is really key. I mean, I think I was in a presentation yesterday actually where the first thing that they did was went through where the fire routes were in the building where we were at. A lot of companies do that just from a safety and standpoint. But your little guidance there is have a point person for issues like this where everybody knows if a call comes in or somebody shows up, that is the point person. So that's good. Let's do this last question before we wrap up today. A little
Sure.
bit lengthy here, but I'll read it. We have OPT students who obtain their STEM OPT, and during those total 3 years, we put them in the lottery and they're not selected. Some students will select another degree program in the STEM field and then are eligible for an OPT and STEM OPT for another 3 years based on the new degree program. Do you believe that this type of situation may continue, or will the student not be eligible for a second OPT STEM OPT?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly valid and lawful. I think the administration is concerned with creating international students that become lifelong students. I still would assume that they would support that and that they would permit that. But again, I don't know what's going to happen to the STEM OPT portion, which gives you extra time on top of the 1 year, basically, that each and every student, regardless of STEM or their major. If that happens, then obviously that the STEM OPT goes away. That limits people's choices. But there are other visa categories you should look at that have not been used as widely in the past. One of them is referred to as the O1. And if you happen to have a situation where someone's has a master's degree in a STEM field working on an emerging technology, et cetera, they may be able to demonstrate that the term is a big term, extraordinary. But the government has been fairly liberal with approving O1s. And there hasn't been a lot of mention. They are looking at upgrading the criteria for both for O1s, EB1As, and NIWs. I'm sorry, all three of those. That comes in January. But just because you cannot pursue an H1B doesn't mean that there aren't other options out there for you at the moment, at least. Canadians and Mexicans can apply for what they refer to as a TN. Yeah, so we can look at it, but in essence, it sounds like an individual in that scenario would be able to continue, but they're going to have to reapply for their visa. So in other words, if they received a 4-year visa and they did their OPT, they're going to have to go back and reapply for a graduate school visa and explain to them why they want to do it in the US versus their home country or somewhere else.
Got it. Okay, Rami, first of all, thank you for spending time with us today. Really appreciate it. I think if it's okay with you, maybe just before the end of the year, we might want to do a follow-up session on this to see where things stand and what new developments are. I think that would be valuable. So we appreciate your time, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yeah, be my honor. Lot of things are expected to materialize in the next few months, so that would love to catch up with you
Then we'll
in
do
December.
that. So everybody who's on, and we will send a link to this out to you. And included in that will be Rami and his firm's contact information. It was on the slide if you didn't jot it down, but please feel free to reach out to him and his company too. So with that, we'll stay on time with these quarterly insights and make sure we get you back to your day or on the way to your day. But thanks everyone for being part of the Mish Auto community. And again, thanks, Rami, and to the Mish Auto team. We'll see you all soon.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, Glenn.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Mr. Auto.